Stop. You haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Subscribe now. We have new stories every day. Now, let's go. The first red flag appeared 3 months before Daniel Harris's 45th birthday. His wife let his phone buzz during dinner, and her entire demeanor changed. The subtle lift of her lips, the quickening of her breath. Minor tells he'd learned to read during their 15 years of marriage. She excused herself from their weekly date night, claiming a work emergency. The Nolan case. He'd asked, watching her gather her things. The navy blazer she wore was new, tailored perfectly to her curves, probably costing more than his monthly car payment. Different client. She didn't meet his eyes, focusing instead on gathering files from her home office. Don't wait up. That night, he tracked her phone's location to the Silver Crest Hotel downtown. When confronted the next morning, Olivia had a ready explanation. Emergency settlement negotiations, neutral ground, standard practice. Her brown eyes held as steadily as she lied. Not a single tell visible. That should have been the second red flag. She'd gotten too good at lying now. Standing in their kitchen on his birthday, Daniel methodically diced herbs for the salmon. Each knife stroke was precise, controlled, just like the facade he'd maintained while watching his wife's behavior change. The late afternoon sun streamed through their bay windows, casting warm light across the granite countertops they'd chosen together during their kitchen renovation. The renovation had been Olivia's idea. "We need a space that reflects who we are," she'd said, pointing excitedly at samples. Her wedding ring caught the showroom lights as she traced patterns on the stone. "This one. It's perfect." He'd agreed immediately, even though it stretched their budget. Her smile had been worth every penny. That smile appeared less frequently now. Daniel checked his watch. 5:30 p.m., still time to perfect everything. He'd left his consulting job early, telling his team he wanted to prepare a special birthday dinner. Mark, his closest colleague, had clapped him on the back. 45 is a big one, Mark had said, offering theater tickets for the weekend. Treat your girl right. Mark didn't know about the hotel incident, or about the mysterious gym membership Olivia had started 2 months ago. Always early mornings or late evenings, never a time when Daniel could join. He hadn't mentioned the new lingerie he'd found in her drawer, items she never wore for him, or the strange charges on their shared credit card that she explained away as client entertainment. The oven timer chimed, drawing him back to the present. Daniel checked the salmon's temperature, ensuring perfect doneness. He had learned to cook specifically for Olivia, taking classes while she worked late at the law firm. Back then, he believed her excuses about client meetings and case preparations. He'd been so proud when she made partner 5 years ago. Even as their intimate moments became increasingly rare, their wedding photo caught his eye, housed in the handcrafted frame from that Dover artisan market. They'd been so young, so full of promise, Olivia radiant in white, him beaming with pride. He remembered his hands trembling as he lifted her veil, her eyes shining with what he'd thought was love. The past few months replayed in his mind as he arranged the table settings. Olivia's sudden interest in overnight business trips, the passwords changed on her phone and laptop. Client confidentiality, she'd explained, not meeting his eyes. The way she angled her phone screen away from him while texting. The mysterious calls she took in their backyard, speaking in hushed tones. Last week, he'd smelled unfamiliar cologne on their sheets. Olivia had brushed it off. Must be from the dry cleaners. But their sheets were washed at home, and they both knew it. She didn't even try to make her excuses believable anymore. The sound of tires on their circular driveway pulled him from his thoughts. Daniel straightened his charcoal blazer, another of Olivia's favorites, though she hadn't commented on his appearance in months. The front door opened, designer heels clicking against their imported marble floor. "Daniel?" Her voice carried that familiar note of fatigue, the same tone she'd used last week to beg off their anniversary dinner. In the kitchen, he called back, lighting the last candle. The dining room gleamed in the soft light, settings perfectly arranged on their whitewood china. Olivia appeared in the doorway, still in her power suit. Her makeup remained flawless despite her claimed exhaustion. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun that emphasized her high cheekbones. A new designer bag hung from her shoulder, at least the third new one this month. Oh, she paused, taking in the scene. Something flickered across her face. Guilt? Annoyance? You didn't have to go to all this trouble. Daniel stepped forward to kiss her, but she turned, offering her cheek instead. Her perfume hit him, sharper, more exotic than her usual scent. And underneath it, something else, something masculine. It's no trouble, he said, keeping his voice light despite the knot forming in his stomach. 45 is worth celebrating, don't you think? Olivia set her bag down, her movements carefully controlled. About tonight, she pressed manicured fingers to her temples. I had the day from hell. 3 client presentations, back-to-back meetings with the partners. A practiced sigh. I've got such a migraine building. Daniel noticed how her left hand twisted her wedding ring, a tell she'd developed recently when lying. He'd observed it during their last dinner party, when she told their friends about her late meetings. The same twist when she claimed her weekend spa trips were girls only. I could help with that, he offered, moving to massage her shoulders like he used to during her law school days. Back when she'd welcomed his touch, leaned into his comfort. Remember how I used to work out all your knots during finals? She stepped away from his hands, the movement subtle but deliberate. Daniel caught her reflection in the kitchen window. A slight grimace, quickly masked. When had his touch become so unwelcome to her? That's sweet, but I really just need to lie down. Maybe take something for this headache before it gets worse. She glanced at her phone as it buzzed, the screen angled away from him. Another new habit. Daniel felt his careful smile freeze. Hours of preparation wasted. The perfectly timed dishes would go cold, the expensive wine undrunk. Just like last week's anniversary dinner and last month's planned weekend getaway. Are you sure? He gestured to the table. The candles, the carefully plated food. I got the pinnet you love. The 82 you mentioned from the Carter wedding. A flicker of surprise crossed her face. She hadn't expected him to remember that detail. I'm sorry, honey. I'm just... Olivia waved vaguely at her head. I'm completely drained. Can we rain-check the celebration? Maybe this weekend. The restaurant's booked for Saturday, he said, watching her reaction. That new French place you mentioned. Oh, I actually have a deposition prep that day. The ring twist again. Maybe next week. The salmon would be inedible by then. The asparagus would wilt. The moment, like so many moments lately, would be lost to her convenient excuses. Of course, he heard himself say, the words tasting ashen in his mouth. You're the best. Olivia pecked his cheek, the contact so brief it barely registered. Don't wait up, okay? Once I take my migraine medication, I'll probably sleep straight through. Her phone buzzed again. This time, Daniel caught a glimpse of the message preview. Can't wait to see you. Mark, before she quickly turned the screen off. He watched her climb the stairs, noting how her claimed fatigue didn't affect her posture or pace. The candlelight flickered across empty place settings as he stood alone in their kitchen, the room they'd designed together, the space where they used to cook Sunday brunches and share midnight snacks. With mechanical movements, he began wrapping the untouched food. The salmon, perfectly cooked and expertly seasoned, went into Tupperware. The asparagus followed. He left the wine uncorked. No point drinking alone on his birthday. His phone buzzed in his pocket, probably wishes from his parents, or maybe Mark checking in about those theater tickets. Daniel pulled out his phone, seeing a message from an unknown number. There was a video attachment. The preview image made his blood run cold. No, he whispered, fingers trembling as he pressed play. The video quality was sharp, professional, clearly shot with high-end equipment. He recognized their bedroom immediately. The pale gray walls Olivia had insisted on painting herself, the abstract art they bought in redwood, The Egyptian cotton sheets she'd ordered from that boutique in Brighton. But what happened on those sheets made his world implode. Olivia was with another man, younger, maybe mid-30s, with the kind of muscular physique that spoke of dedicated gym time and careful diet. Daniel recognized him vaguely. He'd seen the man entering the Silver Crest Hotel 3 months ago, the night of Olivia's emergency settlement negotiations. They were engaged in something she'd always refused with Daniel, claiming it was too intimate, too uncomfortable. But there she was, crying out in obvious pleasure, begging for more. "God, you're so much better than him." Her voice came clearly through the phone speakers. "So much bigger, stronger." The lover laughed, deep and cruel. "Your husband's probably still at work, planning some sad little birthday surprise." Pathetic. More laughter. Olivia's joining in this time. "He's so predictable, probably cooking that awful salmon again." Text appeared below the video. "This is your birthday present. Your wife is enjoying herself." Daniel lurched to the sink, bile rising in his throat. The salmon's aroma now made him gag. Above, he could hear the shower running. His wife, the woman he'd loved and trusted for 15 years, was washing away evidence of her afternoon activities while he'd been preparing a dinner she never intended to eat. The initial shock gave way to something colder, darker. Rage spread through his chest, like ice water, numbing the pain, sharpening his focus. He forced himself to watch the video again, this time with analytical detachment. The timestamp showed it was from just hours ago. The angle suggested a hidden camera, likely in their bedroom air vent. His it background kicked in through the emotional haze. The video had been sent through an encrypted messaging app. Tracing it would be nearly impossible. Someone, this lover, wanted him to know, wanted him to suffer, but didn't want to be found. Daniel heard the shower stop. With practiced efficiency, he forwarded the video to a secure cloud account he'd created months ago after the first hotel incident. Then he deleted it from his phone, scrubbed the message thread, cleared his cache, reset his message settings. Memories assaulted him. Their first meeting at the Sullivan firm's Christmas party, Olivia spilling champagne on his suit, laughing as she dabbed at the stain. "At least it's not red wine," she joked. He'd fallen for her right then. Her quick wit, her confidence, the way her eyes crinkled when she really smiled. When had those genuine smiles stopped? When had they been replaced by the practiced ones she now wore like her designer suits? Their history played through his mind like a twisted highlight reel. The proposal at Lighthouse Point, where he nearly dropped the ring into the ocean. Their wedding day, when he promised to love and cherish her forever. The Sunday mornings, sharing coffee and crosswords, planning their future, discussing the family they'd built together. How many of those moments had been lies? How long had she been laughing at him, mocking his devotion while she slept with a younger man? The gym memberships, the late meetings, the business trips. How many had been cover for their encounters? He could confront her now, storm upstairs, and demand answers. But tactical thinking overrode emotional impulse. She would only deny it, delete evidence, cover her tracks. No, he needed to be smarter, needed to understand the full scope of her betrayal before making his move. The wedding photo caught his eye again. Olivia's smile now seemed malicious, taunting. With deliberate slowness, he reached up and turned the frame face down. Footsteps padded overhead. Olivia, getting ready for bed, getting ready to lie next to him, pretending nothing had changed while his world lay in ruins around him. Daniel pulled out his laptop and began researching surveillance equipment. If they wanted to make him a spectator to their betrayal, he would become the most attentive audience they could imagine. Every moan, every whispered word, every secret meeting would be documented. He started with high-end camera models featuring night vision capabilities and motion sensors, added to cart. Audio recording devices, small enough to hide in light fixtures, added. GPS trackers that could be magnetically attached to a vehicle, added. The familiar rhythm of technical research helped steady his hands, focus his thoughts. He created another secure email account, arranged for delivery to a private mailbox he'd rented last month after finding that strange receipt from the silver crest in Olivia's coat pocket. No evidence would lead back to their home address. His browser history filled with surveillance equipment sites, tiny cameras disguised as smoke detectors, voice-activated recorders that could run for days, software to track cell phone locations, and monitor text messages. Each item was carefully selected, each purchase made through anonymous channels. Daniel opened a new document and began mapping out placement points in their house. The bedroom would need multiple angles. The home office, where she took her private calls. The living room, where she sometimes worked late, laptop angled away from his view. Hours later, Olivia found him in his home office, illuminated by the blue light of his computer screen. "Still up?" she asked, lingering in the doorway in her silk robe, the one he bought her last Christmas. Her hair was damp from the shower, skin glowing. "You should get some sleep." He noted how she kept her distance, no longer coming to massage his shoulders during late work sessions like she used to. Another small death in their marriage. "Just finishing some work," he replied, his voice steady despite the inferno raging inside him. His screen showed a spreadsheet, innocent numbers hiding his real activities. "Go ahead to bed." "Okay. Sorry again about dinner." She hesitated, and for a moment, he thought he saw genuine regret in her eyes. "Happy birthday, honey." Daniel smiled, and it felt like swallowing broken glass. "Thank you, dear." She disappeared down the hall, leaving behind the scent of her shower gel, and something else, something masculine that made his stomach turn. The same scent he'd noticed on their sheets last week, when he'd stripped the bed while she was at the gym. He turned back to his screen, minimizing the spreadsheet to reveal his real work, multiple browser tabs displaying high-end security cameras and monitoring equipment. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he placed the final orders, his mind formulating plans. They thought he was a fool, a weak, trusting husband too blind to see what was happening under his own roof. They would learn how wrong they were. But not yet. For now, he would play the role they expected. The oblivious spouse, too devoted to suspect betrayal. Let them think they were clever. Let them grow confident in their deception. Let them think their little power games and humiliations had broken him. Daniel Harris, the loving husband, died on his 45th birthday. In his place, a patient predator was born, one who would wait in the shadows, gathering evidence, building an airtight case for the perfect revenge. He worked through the night, methodically plotting his response. Each camera placement mapped out, each recording device strategically positioned, every potential legal ramification researched and planned for. When dawn crept through the windows, he finally went upstairs. Olivia was curled up on her side of the bed, breathing softly in feigned innocence. The sheets still carried that faint masculine scent, mixed with her expensive perfume. Daniel slipped under the covers, maintaining the careful distance that had become their norm. He lay awake, replaying the video in his mind, letting the rage simmer and cool into something harder, darker, more purposeful. The sun rose on his first day of gathering intelligence. He would learn their patterns, their meeting times, their preferred methods of communication. Every detail would be recorded, every lie documented, every moment of betrayal captured and preserved. Only when he had enough evidence, when he understood the full scope of their betrayal, would he act. And when he did, their world would burn. The perfect husband was dead. In his place, something colder had been born, something that would watch and wait and plan until the time was right for revenge. The surveillance equipment arrived in discreet packages at Daniel's private mailbox. 3 weeks had passed since his birthday, since the video that had shattered his world. In that time, he perfected his mask of the devoted husband, while methodically preparing for revenge. Another delivery. Mark asked, catching Daniel in the office parking lot with a handful of packages. "Olivia's got you running errands now." Daniel laughed easily, the sound hollow in his ears. "Home security upgrade. Olivia's been worried about break-ins in the neighborhood." Good thinking. Hey, how was the birthday dinner? Olivia, enjoy it. It was perfect, Daniel lied, noting how easily deceit came now. Listen, I might need your help with something. The company's opening a new branch in Lakeview. Mark's eyes lit up. The expansion project. I heard rumors but didn't know it was happening so soon. Strictly confidential, Daniel said, lowering his voice. But I might need to make some trips out there. Would you mind covering for me if anyone asks? Of course, man. Whatever you need. Mark clapped him on the shoulder. Though I bet Olivia won't like you traveling more. Daniel smiled tightly. She understands. Work comes first. Back home, he waited until Olivia left for her evening client meeting before starting the installations. The bedroom came first. Tiny cameras concealed in smoke detectors, air vents, even the decorative molding she'd insisted on installing last year. His phone buzzed. Olivia texting. Meeting running late. Don't wait up. No problem. Honey. Miss you, he replied, while mounting another camera above their bed. The doorbell rang just as he finished the bedroom setup. Daniel checked the security feed. A new habit. And saw Olivia's friend Bridget on the porch. Daniel, is Olivia home? Bridget asked when he opened the door. Her smile seemed forced. Client meeting. Can I help? Bridget shifted uncomfortably. Just needed to talk to her about book club. Book club. Daniel kept his voice neutral. I didn't know she joined one. Oh yes, we just started. Tuesday evenings at the Silver Crest. Their lobby bar is perfect for discussion. The same hotel where he tracked Olivia's phone that first night. Daniel filed this information away. I'll let her know you stopped by. Thanks. And Daniel. Bridget hesitated. How are you two doing? Olivia seems different lately. We're perfect, he said, smiling. Never better. After Bridget left, Daniel pulled up the Silver Crest's website. No book clubs listed, but they did have a loyalty rewards program. He opened his laptop and began working through their security. The hotel's customer database wasn't difficult to breach. Years of it work had taught him every system's weaknesses. Within an hour, he had what he needed. Olivia's room history, every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork, always the same room, always for exactly 2 hours. His phone buzzed again. Olivia. Finished earlier than expected. Coming home now. Great. Want me to heat up dinner? Already ate. Sorry. Of course she had. He heard her key in the lock 20 minutes later. The new cameras activated silently, recording her entrance. She looked relaxed, satisfied, her hair slightly mussed despite her attempts to fix it. Hey, honey, she called out. What did you do today? Daniel emerged from his office, playing his role perfectly. Just work. The Lakeview expansion's keeping me busy. Olivia froze momentarily. Lakeview expansion. They're opening a new branch. I might need to travel there soon. He washed her face carefully. Problem? No, that's great. She recovered quickly, but he caught the flash of calculation in her eyes. How long would you be gone? Hard to say. Could be a few days. He stepped closer, noting how she subtly leaned away. Unless you'd rather I didn't go. Don't be silly. Olivia smiled brightly. Your career comes first. We both understand that. Over the next week, Daniel perfected his surveillance network while playing the role of an increasingly distracted husband. The cameras captured everything. Olivia's secret phone calls, her careful wardrobe selections, her methodical lies. Another late meeting. He asked one evening, watching her apply fresh lipstick, the dark red shade she'd started wearing recently. The Morrison case is heating up. Olivia checked her reflection, adjusting her hair. Judge Warren wants all briefs filed by Friday. Daniel leaned against the doorframe. Funny, I had lunch with Judge Warren yesterday. He didn't mention any urgent Morrison deadlines. Olivia's hand froze mid-motion. She recovered quickly, but he caught the flash of panic in her eyes. Different judge, different Morrison. She forced a laugh. You know how common that name is in this city. Must be. He stepped closer. You've been working so hard lately. Maybe we should take a vacation after my Lakeview trip. Lakeview. She set down her lipstick. When is that happening? Next week, probably. Unless you'd rather I postpone. No, the response came too quickly. You should definitely go. The company needs you. 3 or 4 days, most likely. He watched her expression in the mirror, though it could run longer. Olivia's phone buzzed. She angled it away, but the cameras he'd installed captured the message preview. Can't wait for next week. Your place or mine? Everything okay? Daniel asked mildly. Just work. She deleted the message quickly. Speaking of which, I should go. Don't want to be late. At the office next day, Daniel laid more groundwork. He stood by Mark's desk, speaking just loud enough for nearby colleagues to hear. Lakeview's confirmed, he said. I'll need you to handle the Mitchell account while I'm gone. Mark nodded. How long they need you out there? 3 or 4 days minimum. Could be a week if things get complicated. Olivia must be thrilled. Mark joked. All that time alone. Daniel smiled thinly. She understands. Career comes first. Sarah from accounting passed by. Lakeview. That expansion project everyone's whispering about. Strictly confidential, Daniel replied. Perfect. Office gossip would solidify his cover story. That evening, he accessed the feed from their bedroom cameras. Olivia was making another of her private calls in their walk-in closet. He's going to Lakeview next week. 4 days minimum. No, he doesn't suspect anything. Yes, I'll tell him I have depositions. Don't worry, we'll have plenty of time. Daniel recorded everything, adding it to his growing collection of evidence. He'd installed the final cameras that morning. Tiny lenses hidden in every room of their house. The view from their bedroom caught his attention now. Olivia was undressing, her movements deliberate, sensual. She held her phone up, obviously taking photos never meant for her husband. His phone buzzed. Bridget again. Daniel, can we talk? He stepped into his home office. Of course, Bridget. Everything okay? It's about Olivia. A hesitation. I'm worried about her. About both of you. Oh, the book club thing. I shouldn't have lied. She made me promise to cover for her, but Daniel kept his voice gentle. You're a good friend, Bridget, looking out for her. She's making a mistake. The things she's doing. It's not right. What things would those be? Another pause. I can't. She made me promise. But Daniel, if you ever need to talk. Actually, he said, there is something you could help me with. About next week. After hanging up, Daniel checked his surveillance feeds again. Olivia was in their bathroom now, preparing for another late meeting. The camera caught her practicing her excuses in the mirror. Another deposition, working dinner with clients, having to prepare for court. Daniel opened his laptop and began composing an email to his Lakeview contacts, executives he'd worked with on previous projects. Within an hour, he had official-looking documentation of his upcoming business trip, complete with flight details and hotel reservations. His phone buzzed. Olivia was texting rapidly. He's on his way to the airport. Yes, all week. Come over at 8. Everything was falling into place. The morning of his supposed Lakeview trip arrived. Daniel packed his suitcase while Olivia watched from their bedroom doorway, poorly concealing her impatience. Sure you have everything? She asked, checking her phone for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. Think so. Daniel held up 2 ties. Which one for the executive meeting? The blue. She didn't even look. Another message lit up her phone, making her smile slightly. Something funny. Just Bridget, book club drama. Olivia shifted her weight. What time's your flight again? Noon. Daniel checked his watch. Should head to the airport soon. I'll drive you. No need. Mark's picking me up. He caught her reflection in the mirror, the flash of relief. Unless you want to. No, you're right. I have that deposition at 11 anyway. Daniel zipped his suitcase. The Nolan case. Different one. She twisted her wedding ring. You know how it is. I do now. He turned, catching her eyes. Know exactly how it is. Something in his tone made her pause. Everything okay? Perfect, Daniel smiled. Just like our marriage. Olivia's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, then quickly looked away. I should get ready for court. Of course. He lifted his suitcase. Don't work too hard while I'm gone. I'll try not to. She gave him a quick peck on the cheek. Have a safe flight. Mark was waiting in the driveway, right on schedule, ready for Lakeview. Change of plans, Daniel said once they were driving. Need you to drop me at the Bayview Hotel instead. The Bayview. That's just downtown. I know. Daniel checked his surveillance app. Olivia was already making calls. I'm not really going to Lakeview. Mark glanced at him. Daniel, what's going on? Better you don't know details. But I need a favor. If anyone asks, especially Olivia, I'm in Lakeview all week. Does this have something to do with her late meetings? Daniel turned to his friend. You noticed. The whole office has noticed. Mark gripped the steering wheel tighter. The way she acts at company events, always on her phone, leaving early. There are rumors about her and that new partner at her firm, Keith Moran, ex-military guy. Drives a black Mercedes. Daniel nodded slowly. Keith Moran, 38, former Navy SEAL, started at the firm 8 months ago. Mark whistled. You've done your homework. More than they know. Daniel checked his phone again. Olivia was texting rapidly. He's on his way to the airport. Yes, all week. Come over at 8. The Bayview Hotel loomed ahead, its mirrored windows reflecting the morning sun. Drop me here. Daniel. Mark hesitated. Whatever you're planning. Just watching for now. Daniel grabbed his bag. Remember, I'm in Lakeview. Be careful, man. Inside the hotel, Daniel set up his mobile command center. Laptop connected to the house cameras, multiple screens showing different angles, everything recording. His phone buzzed. Olivia. Made it to the airport okay. Just boarding. Talk later. He replied instantly. Have a safe flight, honey, and smiled coldly at the lie. She answered, You too. Daniel switched to the house cameras. Olivia was already changing clothes, something black and lacy he'd never seen before. She made more calls, checked herself in every mirror. At 7:45, she opened a bottle of wine. At 7:55, she dimmed the lights. 8:00 p.m. exactly. A black Mercedes pulled into their driveway. The cameras caught everything. Keith Moran, tall, muscular, carrying a bottle of champagne. Olivia greeting him at the door. The kiss that followed, definitely not their first. Sure he's gone. Keith's voice came clearly through the audio feed. On a plane to Lakeview, Olivia laughed. We have all week. No more quickies in hotel rooms. No more hiding. She led him upstairs. I want you in my bed this time. Their bed. The bed Daniel had bought when they first moved in together, where he nursed Olivia through the flu last winter, where he'd held her after her father died. Daniel watched them climb the stairs. His rage was cold and focused now. Each camera caught another angle, another betrayal. He recorded everything, backed it up to secure servers. Let them think they were clever. Let them believe they'd fooled him. Soon, they would learn exactly how wrong they were. From his hotel command center, Daniel watched their betrayal unfold across multiple screens. Each camera provided another angle of humiliation. Each microphone captured another mocking laugh. Want to order dinner? Keith sprawled across Daniel's side of the bed, relaxed and arrogant. Or should we work up an appetite first? Olivia emerged from the bathroom in lingerie Daniel had never seen. I have a better idea. She held up a bottle of Daniel's favorite whiskey. Let's have a drink in his study. He always gets so precious about his special collection. Such a waste on him. Keith laughed. Man wouldn't know good whiskey from dish soap. They moved to the study, where Daniel had spent countless late nights working to provide their comfortable lifestyle. The cameras followed their every move as they settled into his leather chairs. To Lakeview, Keith raised the glass. May your husband stay there forever. He's so excited about this business trip. Olivia rolled her eyes, kept asking if I'd miss him, like a puppy begging for attention. Speaking of the sad puppy, Keith pulled out his phone. That video we sent on his birthday. Priceless. Should have seen his face at the office next day. Daniel's hands tightened on his desk. So Keith had been behind the video. He'd enjoyed watching Daniel's pain. You recorded that too. Olivia sipped the whiskey. You're so bad. Got today on camera as well. Keith gestured to a small device on the bookshelf. For my private collection. Daniel zoomed in on the device. Amateur equipment, nothing compared to his professional setup. They thought they were so clever with their little games. His phone buzzed. Bridget again. Daniel, are you really in Lakeview? Why do you ask? Olivia's posting weird things on Instagram, private stories. But Daniel, she's in your house with someone. I know. You know. Thank you, Bridget, for being honest, for trying to warn me. What are you going to do? Daniel watched Keith pour more whiskey, watched him pull Olivia onto his lap in Daniel's favorite chair. Just watch for now. But I need another favor. Anything. If anyone asks about my Lakeview trip, especially Olivia, tell them you saw my posts about the meetings, the hotel, the business dinners. Daniel, can you do that? A long pause. Yes, but please be careful. On screen, Keith and Olivia had moved back upstairs. Their voices carried clearly through Daniel's superior audio system. Think he suspects anything? Keith asked between kisses. Daniel, please, Olivia laughed. He's probably color-coding his Lakeview presentation right now. The man's completely clueless. Still, Keith pulled back. Maybe we should be more careful. If he ever found out. He won't. Olivia reached for him. He sees what he wants to see. Trust me. Daniel opened his laptop, checking the timestamps on all recordings, every file properly backed up, every angle captured. He pulled up Keith's personnel file, acquired through careful hacking of the firm's system. Former Navy SEAL turned lawyer, multiple disciplinary complaints from previous firms, all quietly settled, a history of affairs with partners' wives. His phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. Missing you. How's Lakeview? Good. Long meetings. How's the deposition? Finally finished. Exhausted. Going straight to bed. Daniel switched camera views. Olivia and Keith were hardly sleeping. Poor baby, he texted back. Get some rest. Next, he checked his surveillance of their phones. Keith was texting someone else, another married woman, based on the messages, making plans for next week. Seems Olivia wasn't as special as she thought. Daniel opened his briefcase, removing the final pieces of his plan. Everything was ready. Let them have their fun. Let them drink his whiskey, soil his bed, mock his trust. Tomorrow, they would learn the cost of their betrayal. The cameras caught their eventual goodbyes, their plans for tomorrow night. Keith's Mercedes pulling away at midnight. Olivia spent an hour changing sheets, hiding evidence, spraying air freshener. Daniel watched it all, his rage now Arctic cold. The perfect husband was truly dead. In his place sat a predator, patient and calculating, ready to strike. Morning would bring another day of pretense, another few hours of their pathetic deception. But soon, they would understand exactly who they'd been deceiving, and their world would burn. Daniel sat in his hotel command center, multiple screens showing different angles of his house. The final night of his fake Lakeview trip had arrived. Over the past week, Olivia and Keith had grown increasingly bold, their mockery more vicious, their encounters starting earlier each evening. His phone buzzed. Mark calling again. Hey, just checking how Lakeview's going. Olivia called the office looking for you today. Did she? Daniel kept his voice casual. What did you tell her? Exactly what you said, that you were in meetings all day. She seemed anxious. On screen, Keith's black Mercedes pulled into the driveway, right on schedule at 7:30 p.m. Thanks, Mark, for everything. Sure, man. When are you really coming back? Daniel watched Keith enter through the front door, carrying champagne. Tomorrow night. Late flight. After hanging up, he focused on his surveillance feeds. The cameras caught Keith greeting Olivia in the kitchen, their embrace immediate and passionate. I checked the flight tracker, Keith said, opening the champagne. His plane doesn't land until midnight. We've got hours. Olivia wore the red silk robe Daniel had given her last Christmas. Plenty of time to enjoy ourselves. She handed Keith a glass. To another perfect evening. Speaking of perfect, Keith pulled her close. I brought something special to celebrate our week of freedom. Oh. Olivia's eyes lit up. Another gift. You spoil me. You deserve to be spoiled. Unlike some people. I know your worth. Daniel watched them laugh at his expense, sharing stories about their previous encounters. Keith bragged about other affairs, judges' wives, law partners, summer interns. Olivia found it all hilarious. But you're my favorite, Keith said, nuzzling her neck. Because I know what I want. Olivia sipped her champagne. And it's not some boring IT consultant who thinks salmon and candlelight is romantic. His phone buzzed again. Bridget. Daniel, are you really in Lakeview? Why do you ask? Olivia's been. I saw her at lunch today with that lawyer from her firm. They seemed very close. Did they? I should have told you sooner about the book club lies, about everything. You're telling me now. That matters. What are you going to do? Watch the news tomorrow. Daniel ended the call and checked his briefcase one final time. Everything in place. Every detail perfect. The drive home took exactly 12 minutes. He parked a block away, watching the final preparations on his phone. In their bedroom, Keith and Olivia grew increasingly bold. Want to try his new sheets? Keith sprawled across the bed. The ones he bought for their anniversary. Olivia's laugh carried through the speakers. He spent a fortune on these. Egyptian cotton, special ordered. Guess he finally got to serve some purpose. Speaking of serving, Keith reached for her. Come here and show me how much better I am than your pathetic husband. Daniel moved silently through the garage, using his backup key. The house felt different now. Every happy memory tainted by their betrayal. He passed the kitchen where he'd cooked countless meals, the living room where they'd planned their future, the study where he'd worked overtime to fund her lifestyle. His phone vibrated. A series of calls and messages. The plan was in motion. The master bedroom door stood partially open, spilling warm lamplight into the hall. Their voices drifted out, punctuated by laughter and the rustle of expensive sheets. God, you're amazing, Olivia moaned. So much better than. Daniel pushed the door open. The hinges, recently oiled, gave no warning. Keith saw him first. The ex-SEAL's face transformed from pleasure to shock, in an instant military training kicking in as he recognized the threat. What the? Keith reached for his clothes. Daniel. Olivia clutched the sheets to her chest, face draining of color. You're supposed to be in Lakeview. Supposed to be. Daniel's voice came out arctic cold. He stepped into the room, letting them see what he'd become. Like you're supposed to be faithful. Like he's supposed to be a respectable lawyer instead of a serial adulterer. Keith moved with professional precision, muscles tense. Listen, Harris, this isn't what? Isn't what? Daniel cut him off. Isn't you sleeping with my wife in my bed? Isn't you recording it for your private collection? Isn't you spending the week here drinking my whiskey, laughing at my expense? How did you? Olivia's eyes widened in realization. The cameras. You saw everything. Daniel smiled. The expression never reached his eyes. Every meeting at the Silver Crest. Every cruel joke about my cooking. Every time you mocked our marriage vows. Keith had his pants on now, chest bare, combat-trained body ready for action. Back off, Daniel. You're emotional. Let's talk about this like civilized people. Daniel laughed coldly. Like how you civilized my wife. How you civilized my home. My life. Daniel, please. Olivia moved toward him, the sheet trailing behind like a mockery of her wedding dress. I know you're hurt. We can work through this. Get counseling. Counseling. He turned to her. Like the marriage counseling you skipped last month. The session I paid for while you were sending him videos of yourself. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. Keith's too. Their colleagues, family members, and friends had all received the damning files by now. News outlets as well. Keith took another step forward. This is crazy. The gun appeared in Daniel's hand, stopping Keith mid-sentence. Italian-made, untraceable, perfect for his purpose. On your knees. Jesus Christ. Keith raised his hands, his confidence cracking. Think about what you're doing. The consequences. The consequences. Daniel gestured with the gun. Like the consequences you faced with Judge Warren's wife, or Mrs. Davidson from Johnson and Reed, or that summer intern you paid off. Keith's face went pale. How did you? Your private cloud storage. Amazing what people hide behind weak passwords. Daniel's finger tightened on the trigger. I said, on your knees. Olivia grabbed her phone from the nightstand. I'm calling the police. No signal. Daniel smiled coldly. Check your email instead. Both of you. See what just went public. They reached for their phones, horror spreading across their faces as they scrolled. Oh God. Olivia's voice shook. The partners, clients, everyone. The Bar Association's Ethics Committee. Daniel kept the gun steady. Your entire collection, Keith. Every wife. Every intern. Every bribe. Keith's military composure cracked completely. You can't prove. Your own recordings proved everything. Your hidden cameras. Your trophies. Daniel tilted his head. You really should learn better cybersecurity. Olivia looked up from her phone, mascara running. The firm's accounts. How did you find the embezzlement? The falsified billing hours? The offshore transfers? He smiled. I'm just a boring IT consultant, remember. Who would suspect me of being capable of hacking your encrypted files? Their phones kept buzzing. News alerts, email notifications, text messages, their world crumbling in real time. Keith's training took over. He lunged forward, reaching for the gun. Daniel squeezed the trigger. The shot hit Keith exactly where Daniel had planned. The ex-SEAL collapsed, his arrogance replaced by agony. That's for the birthday video, Daniel said calmly. Olivia screamed, scrambling backward. You killed him. Not yet. Daniel moved methodically, exactly as rehearsed. First, we finish this properly. Keith writhed on the floor, trying to speak through the pain. Blood stained the expensive sheets Olivia had mocked Daniel about earlier. You were right about one thing, Daniel said, removing his wedding ring. I was predictable, the perfect husband. So trusting, so blind. He placed the ring on their bedside table. Not anymore. A series of notifications lit up their phones. Daniel watched their faces as reality set in. Your private recordings just went viral, Keith. Every affair, every secret meeting. He checked his watch. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit is particularly interested in those offshore accounts you two set up. They'll trace it back to you. Keith gasped. The hacking. The surveillance. No. Daniel smiled. They won't find any evidence of my involvement. He pulled out his phone, systematically deleting surveillance recordings. Each camera went dark, one by one, because there won't be any evidence to lead them to me. He moved to Olivia, who stood frozen in shock. The police will find a tragic scene, a cheating wife, exposed and desperate, her lover shot in a moment of rage. He pressed the gun into her hands, her fingerprints overlaying his gloved ones. "No, you can't." "Can't what?" Daniel stepped back. "Destroy your perfect little world the way you destroyed mine." Olivia lunged for the landline. Dead. Cell signals were blocked too. Daniel moved toward the door. "In exactly 7 minutes, the police will respond to reports of gunshots. They'll find 2 disgraced lawyers, their crimes exposed, their lives ruined." "Daniel," Olivia's voice cracked. 15 years. Everything we built was a lie." He reached the doorway. "But I'm giving you a choice, Olivia. More than you gave me. That gun has your prints now. Use it. Don't use it. Your life is over either way." Keith tried to stand and failed. "Harris, wait." "Goodbye, Keith," Daniel said. "Enjoy explaining those videos to the Bar Association. And to your wife. Please." Olivia sank to her knees. "Don't leave me like this." "Like you left me on my birthday," he asked softly, recalling her cruel messages, her laughter at his expense. "Watching your videos, reading your mocking texts." He shook his head. "Goodbye, Olivia. Prison should give you plenty of time to reflect." Daniel walked out calmly, leaving them with a gun and their ruined lives. Behind him, Olivia's sobs mixed with Keith's painful groans. The night air felt clean, purifying. His phone vibrated constantly as he drove to the airport. Channel 7 News. Breaking. Prominent law firm rocked by scandal. Bar Association ethics alert. FBI Financial Crimes Unit. New case alert. Perfect. Everything timed exactly as planned. The airport terminal buzzed with activity. Daniel joined the crowd at baggage claim, establishing his alibi. Several people noticed him: the businessman with a newspaper, the mother struggling with 2 kids, the airport staff who helped with his luggage. His phone kept lighting up. "Mark. Daniel, just saw the news about Olivia. Call me when you land." "Bridget. Oh my gosh, it's everywhere. The videos, the affairs, everything. Are you okay?" His parents. "Son, we just heard. Come home. You shouldn't be alone." The police found him at the terminal coffee shop. 2 detectives, their faces professionally sympathetic. "Mr. Harris. I'm Detective Morris. This is Detective Chan." Daniel looked up, the perfect picture of confusion. "Yes, is something wrong?" "Sir, there's been an incident at your home." Morris sat down. "Your wife, Olivia. What's happened?" "She was supposed to be at a deposition." Daniel pulled out his phone, showing his call log. "She knew I was flying back tonight." Chan took notes, watching his reactions. "When was the last time you spoke with her?" "This morning, from Lakeview." Daniel pointed to the flight details on his phone. She said everything was fine." The detectives shared a glance. "Mr. Harris, there's been a shooting. Keith Morin. Do you know him?" "Olivia's colleague from the firm." Daniel frowned. "What's going on?" Morris showed him a news alert. "Prominent lawyer shot in love triangle gone wrong." Daniel staggered, gripping the table. "No, this can't." Olivia wouldn't. The performance worked perfectly. The detectives spent hours interviewing him, finding only a devastated husband returning from a business trip to find his life in ruins. The next day's headlines told the story in full: law firm scandal, affairs, embezzlement, and attempted murder. Partner's wife arrested in love triangle shooting. FBI raids law offices following financial crimes alert. Bar Association launches ethics investigation. Daniel read them all over room service breakfast. The police had found exactly what he planted: Olivia's fingerprints on the gun, Keith's secret recordings, their financial crimes exposed. Detective Morris called with updates. "Your wife's facing multiple charges: attempted murder, conspiracy, financial fraud." "I just can't believe it," Daniel replied, his shock perfectly portrayed. "All those late meetings, they took advantage of my trust." "But justice will be served," Morris said. "Indeed, It would. Keith survived surgery, but his career and reputation were destroyed. The firm's partners were already distancing themselves. Olivia faced decades in prison. 1 month later, Daniel boarded a first-class flight to his new life. The divorce papers listed him as the wronged party. He kept everything: house, assets, investments. His phone showed one final news alert: former law partners accept plea deals. Decades behind bars. Keith Moran disbarred. Complete fall from grace. Olivia Harris confesses to financial crimes. Daniel ordered champagne and turned off his phone. Behind him, he left the ashes of his old life and the 2 people who had wronged him to burn. Their game was over, his revenge complete. And Daniel Harris disappeared into his new life, leaving nothing but destruction in his wake. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.